They hit a
So
spike in motivation,
say that again.
or they hit a spike in motivation.
Right. Yeah.
That's the other time. Yeah, so it was interesting because just thinking about this concept on my side of things, um, my first thought was load management in that regard too. I feel like every time I'm looking through TikTok or Instagram or anything, anytime injuries come up, like 90% of the time, like, yeah, it's just load management. Oh, you're hurt. It's still load management, except now you're in a much more rehab setting. Like maybe you start with bands, still load management. Oh, two sets hurts, but one set is fine with a little bit lighter. That's where we start. Like, um, and it's interesting. I like that rule that you're only increasing volume or intensity one at a time. It's a little bit different in hypertrophy and strength, or more so hypertrophy, but a little bit in strength. Um, just because it's required that we're so far close to our max relatively, that we're to be able to like get meaningful hypertrophy. So like we're training to a degree where every single workout we're getting a large skeletal muscle pump, we're getting a lot of jello-y disruption, we're getting a hopefully 1 to 2 days of delayed onset muscle soreness. And kind of the goal is to some degree is to kind of as you start to adapt, keep pushing that. So you like you flirt with the cliff's edge every time. But then when you first start a mesocycle of training, you're so sensitive to the stimulus of resistance training that getting a maximal stimulus might only take this much. So you're not very, this is the cliff's edge. This is what it takes to get a really, really good stimulus for you. But we have to progressively overload. So we make a big hit and then you can kind of auto regulate. Was that hit too little, too much? And what I mean by that is adding load, volume, etc. A good rule of thumb is the least stimulative thing you could add is a rep. The moderate amount of stimulus that you could add is adding load to the bar. And the most stimulative thing you could do is start adding sets. So that volume at the end of it, yeah. So like if I have an athlete that's in week one and they get like pretty beat up, I'm not adding sets to week two. Like we might say, okay, this week we're gonna try to beat by 1 or 2 reps what we did last week. So not adding volume and intensity at the same time, right? Kind of the same thing. But then if it's pretty underdosed, like let's say the chest is just not doing what they want, not getting sore, not getting pumps, we might add 2 or 3 sets, and then we also might add like some load to the bar or something like that. But we do that, and where you do it, kind of, you also do this in a phasic approach. But what you were kind of describing is some days were easy and some days were difficult. All of our days are pretty uniformly difficult, and we just take one step each week closer to the cliff's edge until we get to that point where we are maxed out, deload, and repeat. So it's not like the price we pay, I guess, is that there's not really an easy day. Week one is like easier than the rest. Comparatively to like the price you pay is like your hard stuff is a lot harder than our stuff. I feel like when you have like a hard workout and it's like 20 or 40 minutes of XYZ thing where you like feel like you're gonna vomit the whole time. I'm like, yeah, my hard thing today is 7 sets and some dips. I'm done in 45 minutes.
That's one thing that I miss about the strength training world. Like when I played baseball in college, it was like, yeah, okay, you're lifting heavy weights and like it's hard from a, muscular strength standpoint for like maybe 30 seconds to a minute, right? Like
Yeah,
you're maxing yourself out and then you get to rest for a minute or two or three depending on, the goal of the session. And then you get back at it. Like with endurance sport, it's completely different where you're going the entire time. You don't get a break. So, yeah, it's and it like you said it takes a lot longer than like your 7 sets and done in 45 minutes maybe. So yeah, it's just interesting to see the difference between the two. And like you said, you're kind of always at a moderate level,
yeah,
whereas the majority of the time we are very easy and it's chill. But then the other times it's like really really hard. This
yeah.
morning I was at the track doing a run and I had like 400s and thousands, so 1K, which is like 0.625 of a mile. And So those would take me maybe like 3-ish minutes, but it's like 3 minutes of like full gas.
Yeah.
By the end, you're like breathing really, really heavy. The 400s were even faster than the thousands, and so it's like you're trying to catch your breath, and you have a minute of rest in between before you do the next one. So it's like it's just go, go, go. But that being said, like the easy is very easy. Like I just stand there or walk. It's not like I'm jogging in between either. So kind of similar to when you're doing a set and in between sets, you're just sitting down or walking around. So the rest portion of that I feel like is the same. But yeah, like you said, the intensity is quite a bit higher on those hard days. But it probably all balances out if you think
Yeah.
about it. Like you guys are always at a moderate level, whereas we're kind of like a little more split of easy and hard. But it probably ends up evening out.
Yeah, because like the last week before a deload, like every set is basically to failure, and even sometimes you're doing like lengthened partials beyond failure. So it's like every set is very, very painful, and then you're like, why did I pick this sport again? And then you go to do your next session. Um, but one of the ways that I kind of coach people in the idea of managing their load in this regard is specifically in like lifting weights, looking at muscle pumps that we talked about, muscle disruption or like that jello-y dead feeling, and then next day soreness. So like I have people do kind of like a self-perceived scale, 10-point scale. If you go into the gym week one, and I straight up give my clients one set of each exercise, let's say it's 3 exercises, and I say, send me your form to make sure it's good, but then do sets of that muscle group until you get a pump and disruption feeling of like a 5 to 7 out of 10. Like it should be kind of stiff in the chest and you should be kind of jello-y. Like if you were holding a cup of coffee, it might shake a little bit, something like that. Um, that tells us we've got a good stimulus, but not like a stimulus that's just gonna make you sore for 7 days, right? And then after that, the next day we look at soreness. Obviously, if you're sore for like somewhere between a half a day to 2 days, we know we picked your load basically perfectly. And then from there, that's our baseline. And it's just about experimenting with how to add each time. So if we got like if they hit it pretty well, got a pumps of like 7, soreness for like a day, we might add a little or one set and load to the bar and see how they respond. And then if that window stays the same, but we did a harder workout, that stimulus window, we know that the load is perfectly managed there too. And we just kind of monitor those 3 things as the floating window kind of goes up until we deload. So that's kind of like the practical applied way to do it in weightlifting.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because ours is more like we kind of build for 3 to 4 weeks and then take a week off regardless of like how performance is and
Mm,
feelings of soreness, whatever, just because um, the the risk versus reward really isn't there
sure.
for us because like we talked about with the whole injury thing, if you're feeling good, you're pushing the pace, and then all of a sudden like you're up to 70 miles in the week and
That's when you hurt
then you
yourself.
get hurt. So it's like 4 or 5 weeks and then we kind of just take that. We don't call it a deload, it's more like a recovery week.
Sure.
um during that
Different
recovery
term, same
week we'll
thing.
still have, yeah, yeah, you still have touches of intensity, but it might not be the 40 minutes of track work. It might just be a few strides at the end of an easy run or something like that. So yeah, not and again, it is athlete dependent. Some might be able to go 5, 6 weeks without that recovery week, and some might only be 3, 4. But yeah, pretty regularly taking those down weeks because then it also allows the body to absorb the training,
Yep.
because when you're exercising, you're actually breaking the body down, and you're not getting better during the workout, you're getting better in the recovery following the workout. And so if you're running every day or multiple times a day, you're not able to get that full recovery. And so that's kind of what the recovery week is for, is to allow your body to absorb that training. So
Yeah.
yeah.